Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Thanks for taking the time, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show, Toby.
Okay, we're going to I know you're a speaker. I know you do a lot of stuff, Jim. We're going to get into all that, but before we get there, take a minute and tell us a little bit about who you are. Who's Jim?
So, Jim Remley, I am a 30-year real estate veteran. I always tell people, don't let that scare you. I'm still active in the trenches. I started when I was 19, got in the business, and was fortunate to work my way into ownership at 23 and grew an office to 17 offices. So we're the largest independent in Oregon at that point. Sold in 2006, got lucky right before the crash and sold my company. And then I came back to run another company in 2009 after taking a couple of years off and making some investments and writing a few books, teaching for NAR. So now I run a company in Southern Oregon. We're 160 brokers. We're on track to do $1 billion in sales this year. We're a RealTrends top 500 company. So we're one of the top 500 companies in America.
Wow. Okay. So that's amazing. I'm in California, and everybody uses agent and broker. The rules are different everywhere. When you say you have 160 brokers, you're talking
in layman terms as agents.
Agent. Yep. Perfect. I just want to clear that because people get that confused. So you have 160 agents. If you're going to do $1 billion in sales in Oregon, and where specifically in Oregon, Jim?
We're right on the border of California, so we're Medford and Ashland. So when you cross over the border, you're hitting our two cities.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so you have your average your average sales price isn't like $1.5 million. So you guys, some of those. No. So you have teams.
360.
Okay, jeez. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're talking about real numbers and units. Okay, man, I want to know, we're going to get to, we have a lot of people listening. We have people like you who've been around forever listening to the show. We also have people just getting their license. So we're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff. Let's talk about, before we get into, again, by the way, great story, right?
Thank you.
Started at 19, you continually sought new avenues, right? You became an owner, you built offices. Okay. Let's talk about the book you wrote, right? Because we all need leads. We get leads. We work on them. We call them. Hopefully, we follow up. We do all the things. We get into the living room and bang, all our hard work, right, fizzles away in an hour or 30 minutes because we did not have our presentation. So let's start there, and then we'll just kind of meander around. Good?
Sure. Yeah.
What is that?
One of the books I wrote was called Real Estate Presentations That Make Millions, and what I discovered was, as a new agent, I think a lot of hungry agents kind of experiences is that there's a million opportunities. I mean, everywhere you walk out the door, you talk to 10 people, one of them wants to sell their house statistically. And so for me, setting appointments wasn't the problem. But for me, what my problem was, once I got there, I would screw up most of my appointments. I wasn't great at closing. So, I just was terrible. And through sheer force of will, I was able to do some work, but I learned really quickly that I needed to model other top agents in my community, and I sat down with several of them, and one of the secrets to my success was going into other markets and talking to top producers in other markets that are not threatened by you. Because in your own market, people are going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you anything.
Right.
Get out of your kid.
Absolutely, man.
Right. So you got to go outside your market or in your franchise outside your market and say, hey, I just want to buy you coffee, and top agents are open books. They're going to tell you anything that you want to know. They love it because it's a little bit egocentric for them. They want to tell you the story. And so what I learned really quickly is that I had to narrow my presentation. I had this huge book, and I would go through it, and it was all egotistical and ridiculous. And so I narrowed my presentation down to 3 core aspects, which I call the 3 Ps. It's price, it's product, it's promotion. And really, that's all they want to talk about. And so when I narrowed it down to those 3 Ps, that was my whole focus of my presentation. I would just sit down. And one of the things I learned from these top producers is everyone talks about building a listing presentation. And a lot of people do it, but most people never get it out. Most people just keep it in the briefcase, and they just kind of rely on their personality to win.
Right.
And they're always surprised when they don't win.
Yeah, Jim, I got you're going to cover a lot of good stuff here. You're going to find that I'm going to interrupt you if you're okay with that.
Interrupt
okay.
all you want.
Because so let's go back. Real quick, you had to talk to. Did you say 100 people to get one presentation?
It would be more like 20 to 1. If I remember 20 people, I'd nail one presentation at least. And a lot of times I'd do better than that.
Now, again, a lot of people struggle with this. So what do you mean? Because that's a crazy hit ratio. Now, are you saying 20? You had 20 real conversations? How many?
20 real conversations.
Okay, how many?
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Some of the things that I would do to set appointments, and people say, "How do you set so many appointments?" One of the things I did is for open houses. Just to give you an example, you have an open house, or maybe you don't have a listing, but you borrow somebody's open house, and you say, "Hey, somebody in your office has a house, I'll hold it open." But then you go further than that, and you talk to 10 people on either side, 10 homeowners on either side. And my conversation was always a little different. I would say, "Hey, we're having an open house this weekend. You probably noticed your neighbor's house was listed. But first of all, I want to invite you to come over and check it out. I'm always curious what my neighbor's house looks like. But I have a crazy question for you, and it's going to sound a little bit off the wall. But if I have a buyer that doesn't quite fit this house but loves the neighborhood, would you consider selling for the right price?"
Wow, that's awesome.
And then they'd be like, it's almost like it stops you kind of in your tracks. And even if you're not thinking about something, you're like, "Well, for the right price, I might."
Right, absolutely. Yeah, sure, right? I'll take a look.
Yeah, maybe. And then another technique that I picked up over the years, too, was every agent, even a brand new agent, is generally showing homes. Even if you're not listing homes, you're generally showing homes every week, right?
Yeah.
So every time you show a home, it's an opportunity. So even if the buyer has zero interest in it, you can come back around that house you just showed, and I call this narrow casting, and you knock on 5, 10 doors on either side. And you just knock on the door and you say, "Hey, my name's Jim. I just showed your neighbor's house. You probably noticed they have it listed. My buyer, they love this neighborhood, but they just don't quite like that specific house." And then I go in the crazy question, would you consider selling for the right price? That makes it much more relevant and much more timely and much more a little bit urgent than just knocking 500 doors on a neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was always kind of like dropping little bombs in neighborhoods and just like very, very small 5-10 homes. And if you think about that, if you're selling 4 homes a week, most people are showing more than that, that's 40 opportunities to knock on people's doors with something that's really relevant.
Right.
That they want to talk about, right?
But so I think everybody listening would go, "That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I should do that." Right? Here's the problem: they're not going to. You just said something that literally could make people. This one little technique could double somebody's income. Right? If they just followed this, right? Borrowed somebody else's listing and did this thing. So what you said was worth a ton of money here, but you and I both know people are not going to do it. Now I want to here's the transition I want to make, and tell me if it makes sense. When you talked about what you were doing wrong initially with your listing presentation, you said my listing presentation was full of ego, and I think I know what that means, and because I get it, I have the same problem in a lot of ways. But I also think it is ego that is going to stop those people from using this tactic you just mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about ego and how you see that and how your ego was getting in your way?
Absolutely. Somebody told me a story one time, and I'll make it really quick. But for me, I think one of the hardest things is to ask for generosity and ask for people's help. And so this is what gets in the way of a lot of people tapping their own sphere of influence. So here's what happens. A lot of agents go talk to strangers about listing their house, but they won't talk to their own sphere of influence.
Yeah.
And a top producer told me one time, he said, "Now listen, Jim, I'm going to tell you a little quick story, and here's the story." He said, there's a woman driving through a neighborhood. She's a little bit poor down on her luck, but she drives by and somebody's coming out of her garage, and she's carrying a load of toys down to the garage to throw them out. She's got her son in the car, and it takes everything in her power to pull the car over and go up and ask the lady, "Hey, would you mind me taking those toys? And my son's in the car. He would love to play with those toys. We don't have the money to buy them." And of course, the woman says, "Of course, take all the toys you want. In fact, come up to the garage and I'll give you a bunch more."
Right.
And the moral of the story is who felt better. And actually, the person that felt the best was the woman that was giving the gifts to the son, to this kid in the car. But what would have stopped that whole situation from happening was the lady's ego getting in her way. If she didn't have the guts to set her ego aside and go ask the question, she wouldn't have got those gifts. And the same thing is true of us. When we set our ego aside and we say, I'm just going to ask for generosity because most people want to help us. We just got to get out of our own way. You know? And that really opened my mind. I was like, you know what? That is so true.
But I listen, Jim, I love that story. And I think, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? That is so true for a lot of people. But again, I still think, and we, you know, I don't want to kill it. This is a 2-hour conversation about ego if we wanted to have it, but you know, that again, we are posed with a situation where there's two strangers involved, right? So one stranger meets another, driving down the road, and she can say without ego, say, I don't have enough money. I'm not successful enough to buy my own kids some toys. Do you, you know, can I have those? So, but what, you know, what if, you know, you had a bad quarter, right, in your early days, and you were in the same situation, and you're driving down the street, and everybody knows, hey, that's Jim. He sells real estate, really successful guy, right? You could have been in this situation if you didn't sell your company prior to the crash, right? You mentioned earlier, you got lucky with that. Yeah. You know, what about in that case? Like, what do you have any tips?
Well, here's another avenue for that,
okay.
And when I am talking to agents about getting other people vested in their success, one of the best ways you can do it is to put people in your sphere of influence in a position of owning a part of your success. And how do you get them to do that? To take ownership of your success. And the way that we do that, we train our agents to do that, is we say, hey, listen, if you're in my sphere, I'd say, hey, Toby, I really respect you. You're such a smart guy, man, and you've done so much in your career. I would love you to take a look at my website. Just critique it, man. Tear me apart. Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me what I should fix. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. I'd love your feedback. And as soon as you open your mouth and give me feedback, you've taken a little bit of ownership of my success.
I want to break in here. Right.
And now you're vested a little bit in my success. And if I do that, and I have brainstorming meetings and coffee meetings, and I'm always inquiring, I'm always an open book, and I'd say, hey, just listed a house. I took a bunch of pictures. Which pictures do you think work the best for this house? What would turn you on as a buyer? What would turn you on as a seller?
Right.
And you know, you get them to engage with what you're doing with real estate. When you do that, people get excited and they love it. You know, they get a little high off of watching you get successful.
Yeah, that's right. And it could be, right, because they have some sort of, you know, in Silicon Valley, when you're raising money for a startup, there's a saying that says, when you're looking for money, ask for advice, right? Because when you ask for money, you end up getting advice. So you're right. And and here's what I'll say. Here's one thing I'll tack on to what you're saying is I get a ton of emails. I'm sure you do too, and questions like, well, when do I get an assistant? How do I find an assistant? I need this, I need that. And why are you asking me, right? Why are you looking in Craigslist? What you should be doing is going to your sphere of influence and saying, listen, I need a part-time bookkeeper. Hey, listen, calling everybody and saying, hey, I need some help. Can you help me staff my new growing company? You know, that's how to find good, loyal talent rather than going to strangers. It's so strange that, you know, we do have a hard time, I think, asking for help, especially because, you know, people a couple years into real estate, maybe they're experiencing some success, but, you know, they went out and bought the nice car that they really couldn't afford the first year because they had to have a nice car because they were showing houses, right? And anyhow, that's
another take on that, which is right along what you're saying, is we call this filling our gaps. And so you go to your sphere and you say, hey, listen, and this is a prospecting tool. It could be a social media post, could be a text, could be an email, and you say, hey, listen, I'm looking for an attorney I can recommend my clients to. Who's your best recommendation for an attorney, right? And if you put that on social media, you get like 5 or 10 people. Now you have an opportunity to call the attorney or the accountant or the gardener or the plumber or the electrician. You can say, hey, I asked the people that I know who they recommend. They said your name. I'd love to have coffee with the exchange business cards. I'd love to send you a bunch of business this year. Would you be open to that?
Right.
No one's going to say no to that.
Right.
It's another way to grow your sphere, to grow your network.
I love it. Okay. All right. So moving on a little bit. But still staying with the same topic. Your listing presentation. You boil down, you know, we were talking about how ego gets in the way of people's presentations, clouds what they say. You boiled your presentation down to price, 3 things, the 3 Ps: price, product, promotion.
Yep.
You wrote a whole book. I don't know what to ask first. Go.
So, on price, I think this is the number one thing that people want to talk about, right? So what I would say on price is I'd say, listen, the market's changed. The way we sell homes has changed over the last 10 years. The thing I want to kind of share with you is the speed of the market and what's happening digitally. So here's one conversation I have with every seller today is I'll say, listen, when we list a house, virtually it's exposed to every buyer within 24 hours. It's not like it takes 10 days or 13 days or 30 days. Because what happens is most buyers are signed up on a portal. They're on Realtor.com, they're on Zillow, they're on my website, they're on other franchise websites. And so they get an email or they get a text, and it's going to say, here's a new listing that matches your criteria. So we only got one shot at the apple. We've got one bite to make a first impression. We've got to make sure we hit this right. And then I talk about search engine pricing. And I lead into this concept of never listing with nines. I would say we're not Walmart. We don't list with nines. And here's my theory on nines and digital pricing is this, that if you're a buyer and you're looking for a home, and I always encourage my sellers, I said, become a buyer. You're going to be a buyer because I'm going to sell your house. Go on Zillow, go on Realtor.com, go on my website, and it's going to guide you. It's going to say, 100,000, 150, 200,000, 250, and you're going to pick one of those. You could type a number in, but you won't. Just like when people face an escalator, 95% of the time, they don't take the stairs, they go up the escalator because it's easier. Yeah. And the same thing's going to be true on the portals.
That's
so when you list your property, when you list a property, then you want to be on the zero. You want to be on the price point. And the reason is, let's say you listed a house, I was using this example with sellers. In my market, you list a house for $299.9, right? A very common price. If I pulled up MLS, there'd be 25 listings like that. But if I want $100 more to $300,000, now I'm going to get every buyer searching between $250 and $300, but also every buyer searching between $300 and $350. I'm going to straddle two markets. I'm going to double my activity instantaneously by not listing on the 9. Those are the kind of strategic conversations you got to have.
Right.
It's not just about comps. It's about strategy.
Yeah, that's smart, man. That's smart. Most people. Most people do, and most people are listening. So let's not go into that. Okay, and then so how what is it about the product that which the house itself so you have one shot, right? And you talk strategy, yep. Which is, I think, again, very smart, right? You're strategizing with them. I think you're doing a couple things. Number one, you are avoiding a bunch of certain objections by laying out your strategy early and saying, listen, we're going to straddle two markets, right? We're going to reach everybody by doing this. And again, as realtors, this is not necessarily rocket science, but I think what can be rocket science is the fact that you're pointing this out to, and you're getting the prospect. You and that prospect are almost collaborating at this point, right? You're
right.
It's you're creating a different sort of relationship. But then, okay, so let's. What about the product piece of it? Like, what's that?
So on the product, I think one of the things that everybody talks about is staging, but a lot of agents have no idea what staging actually means. And so I always like to educate people. So there's a new study that just came out in 2018. It was the largest study of staged homes, 4,200 staged homes. And on average, 68% of the staged homes sold on average for 9% more than their unstaged neighbors.
Wow.
And when you say that to people, they're like, what? You're like, yeah, let me tell you, 68% sold for 9% more. So do you want to talk about staging? And of course, the seller's going to be like, yeah, tell me everything there is to know about staging. And so when we walk through staging, we'll say, when you hear the word staging, you might get some ideas in your mind, like what you see on TV. But here, I'm going to tell you here's what staging really means. And this is according to the same study. Decluttering the home, first thing you should do. That means taking everything down that makes the home look smaller. It fills up closet space. But there's something else about this too, and that is, I'm going to sell your home. You're always with the assumption that you are going to sell the home, and the powerful statement that, hey, I'm going to sell your home.
Right. So
you're going to be packing up all this stuff anyway. So if you pack it up now, you're going to be able to get more money for your house, which that's a win-win, right? Cleaning the home, removing pets during showing. Carpet cleaning, minor repairs. I'm going to walk through the house if you want me to, and I'll give you 10 of the things that I think a buyer might notice. Now, if you'll notice that language, language in sales matters.
Yes.
So when I say a buyer might notice, I'm not saying I notice, or an appraiser might notice.
Right.
Is another way to frame it.
An inspector might notice.
That way, an inspector might notice. you can get those things taken care of now, and that way you get more for your money. You get more home for your money.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that we walk them through. The traditional staging, when we hear those words, which means moving furniture around and putting plants up or pictures up, most of that has nothing to do with what staging really means. Staging is really just getting the home dialed in. I call it turnkey ready, move-in ready, parade ready. Some people use that statement for a buyer to walk in. And the way I frame that to a seller is I'll say, listen, here's the reality. Buyers, on average, latest study from NAR, will look at 10 homes over 10 weeks before they make a buying decision. So we're competing with 10 other homes. And what we want to do is make your home really shine and really stand out. And what we don't want to have is have 50 showings and no offers. If we get through 10 showings and there's not an offer, there's a problem.
Right.
So that's the way I have the conversation with them.
Yeah, and again, the way you're having this conversation with them, you are acting. It's number one. You're hopefully everybody can model you. I mean, you're clearly a leader, right? And the way you speak and present yourself.
Thank you.
Right? You as you're talking, doing this role play here, right? You come off with authority because you're like saying, hey, according to and super knowledgeable, right? NAR says this study says this study says this, right? My experience, it's not Jim saying this. This is like you're saying this. Basically, you're saying, the FDA approved this medicine, and I know it's good for as if your doctor was telling you what to do. And I'm a pretty skeptical guy. But if I was listening as if I was a person, like I would be in on this, right? I would be in on this.
Right. It's all in framing it so they see the benefits themselves.
Right.
Not selling them on it. It's like, hey, this is going to help you. I'm just here to help you, man. Right. Another thing that comes up when you're talking about condition is smoking in a house, right?
Yeah.
And talking about studies, there's a study done by Realtor.com last year, and that smoking in a house can reduce the property resale value by up to 29%. And then you say, how do I say that to someone now?
Right. Right. Somebody's still smoking in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So the way that I frame this with agents when they're going to talk to a seller, and sometimes they'll bring me to tell the seller this, is they'll say, hey, I noticed you're a smoker. And, no problem with you smoking in the house. Of course, it's your house. You can do what you want. But I do want to point out something that we do have a study out that shows that when you smoke inside the house, it can lead to a resale value of 29% less than your people that don't smoke in the house. So can I give you some suggestions on how we can overcome that? And when you frame it that way, they're like, oh, yeah, tell me what you want. Well, sometimes they'll react, but it does help to get past that.
Right, but right. But I think part of framing is also saying, do you understand what 24% less or whatever the percent? That's this much money, right? Like, if somebody gave you $50,000 to stop smoking, would you do it? Yeah, I would. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, and again, most people, I think, so we're now at the last bucket of yours, which is promotion, I think, and I think most people just deal with price, right? Hey, here are your comps, and most people hate that stuff anyway, unless they live in a super cookie cutter neighborhood. And then the mistake that I see agents do is they I feel like everybody has the same slides, everybody says the same thing, and there's absolutely no differentiation when it comes to promotion. The good news is, in the way you're doing it, right, you were already talking about promotion when you were discussing price. But
absolutely, yeah.
What do you say, man, about promotion? You already said everybody's going to see it in 24 hours. Like, what else can you say?
Well, on promotion, the way I frame it is when I'm talking about promotion, that's really how I'm going to market the property to the public. And this is more than advertising. Advertising is just throwing pictures up. I'm going to market the house, and here's how I'm going to market the house, because I'm not going to market just the house, which is 4 walls and a roof. I'm going to market lifestyle. And these keywords are super important. I'm going to market lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I'm going to showcase what people would experience if they were living in this house, in this neighborhood. And we're going to tell a story. We're going to tell a story about what it's like to live here and what all the benefits and the features of those benefits. This is one thing that a lot of agents just don't get. And if you read through their marketing, if you read through most agents' marketing, I just did a class on this the other day on emotional advertising. But if you look at most agents' marketing, it'll say something like this: 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet, small yard,
just the facts.
Crap.
Yeah.
Just the facts, man.
Yeah.
But that's not, nobody buys a house. People eliminate homes based on logic. They buy homes based on emotion.
Yes.
So I always say, what happens with the consumer, and we're all consumers. We will all buy a house at some point. Even if we don't consciously know it, subconsciously what we're doing is we're redlining through very rapidly every home that doesn't work. So we're not looking at ads to accept them. We're looking at ads to reject them. Yeah. And you give them any rejection point. If I say it's a 3-bedroom and I want a 4, that house is out of contention.
Yes.
You tell me if it's a small yard and I want a big one, out of contention. And so when you list out things like that, you're giving people reasons to reject it. Nobody's going to buy a house based on that. Mm-hmm. You got to give them reasons to accept it. And so it's all about framing lifestyle, really telling a story. And visuals are a big part of it, of course. And so you want to have great visuals. And I always tell agents, your listings are a reflection of your business. So when you have crappy pictures on a listing, that's a direct reflection of who you are as a business owner. So you got to have like the best of the best dust shots. You got to have, early morning shots. You got to have ambient lighting. You got to have it make it look just super, super sharp. So those are a few of the things that we cover. Well, one of the things I always tell agents too is when you're talking about a feature of a house, let's say it's a pool, you got to reference the benefit of the feature. Nobody cares about a pool. What they care about is the pool party.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody cares about a deck. They care about the barbecue they're going to have on the deck, right?
Yeah.
So you got to, nobody cares about, speakers in the ceilings in the living room. They care about, what's going to happen on Christmas when they have that music coming through the speakers. That's the kind of thing. Those are the stories you got to tell.
I couldn't agree more, man. And I want to hear more about your emotional advertising that you mentioned earlier. But how do you tell a story? Like, listen, I think that this is brilliant. Again, everybody looks for how to say this one doesn't work, right? This one doesn't fit because everybody. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to get into the consumer mind. They do that. But how do you tell us, like what kind of story? Like, give me an example. I mean, I love storytelling, and that's what we're doing right now, hopefully. But give me an example of what that might look like. How do you turn?
Can I read an ad to you?
Yes,
a real life
absolutely.
Ad?
Love it.
Okay. This is I did a class in Santa Cruz, California, a while back, and this was an actual ad I pulled out of a magazine or something, and it said this. It says. The headline was "Bake a Cake. Yes, it's time to celebrate. This 1,200 square foot ranch-style home in Santa Cruz offers 3-bedroom and 1.5 baths. The single-car garage is perfect for hobbies, and the small fenced yard is a great place to enjoy the sunshine." And when you're listening to that, you might say, "Oh, that sounds pretty good," but there's 7 reasons to reject that property.
Yes,
it was only $895,000, by the way. Back then, it was a while back.
Jeez.
So in class, we all took some time. We rewrote the ad, and here is the new version of that. And we're trying to make it rejection proof. We're trying to eliminate reasons for people to redline it. Remember, the goal of advertising and marketing is to make the phone ring, not to sell the house. You're very rarely going to ever sell the house. You are trying to generate leads most of the time.
Yes.
So this is the rewritten ad. Bake a cake. Yes, it's time to celebrate. This spacious ranch-style home located in a beautiful seaside town offers a picture-perfect setting along with ample bedroom sizes, an attached garage, and a fenced yard. So we've eliminated and you can't make it perfect, but we've eliminated as many rejection points as possible. And people say that's a little bit vague, but yeah, that's okay. We give them too much, they won't call, right? We want them to call, we want them to text, we want them to email. We want to generate leads.
You're right. So I think the rewritten piece is much better, right? I do think. Here's what I'll tell you, because I don't know if you probably don't know this, Jim, but that's what we do. So we are an advertising marketing company. So we put people on the radio and television primarily. So
Gotcha.
So we have a whole team here writing copy all the time.
Well, you could probably wait. I'm sure you could write 1,000%.
No. I think that was really well done. There's just 2 comments I would say. Is one is when so that copy would definitely work much better. Clearly, a lot of people, a lot of agents, and sometimes homeowners you use the word spacious. Spacious to describe 1,200 square feet. I think some people have issue with that. However, in terms of copywriting, it's much better. So if everybody's fine with being a little bit not completely truthful. And look, by the way, that's what advertising is. I think this is a conversation I have all the time with people is we're not going to just tell the exact truth to everybody, right? We have to differentiate ourselves, and we have to make, sometimes you might have to say spacious when it's only 1,200 square feet, right?
It's a spacious 1,200 square feet.
There you go. It's open. Just, the thing that I see that missing is like a really strong call to action at the end, because, I do think it is a little bit vague, and a lot of people will be like, I'm not. I know that you're a digital guy as well, which I think is great after being an older guy and being in the industry for so long. But people, everybody takes the escalators, man. They don't take the stairs, right? They do the easy thing. Right. So when you see an ad that's good like that, like it's going to take a lot of gumption for somebody to pick up the phone and go, "Hey, let me call Jim and let me see what this is all about." Right? What exactly is the square footage? So I would say, I think like you need the closing call to action might be like, $20,000 in their market, right? Maybe that's not true, but something where it's like, there's some kind of reason that I need to call.
There's a sense of urgency.
Right.
I love it.
Sense of urgency, but also there's some kind of urgency that I need to find out to eliminate this thing or go further. So okay.
It.
Sorry, man.
No, I love it.
Okay, so
another thing that we talk about is the focus feature of the house.
Okay,
and I think that's another missed opportunity for a lot of agents is we kind of write all ads the same, and we miss the fact that we need to have every house has a focus feature, even if it's a small house. If it's a big house, doesn't matter. It's the wow factor of the house. And what we do is we say to the agent, always ask the seller what they think it is before you decide what
Right, absolutely.
Because inevitably you'll guess wrong, right? Yeah. And you're like, no, that's not why I bought this house. So the way we ask that question is we say, hey, why did you buy this house? And what do you think we should emphasize the most in the marketing? And then can I share with you my thoughts if you disagree? And then you focus your ad a little bit around that focus feature, or a lot around it if it's an amazing focus feature. Because that's your differentiation point, which I think is another big missed opportunity for agents is really going after that differentiation point. And sometimes I just had this experience with an agent where she had a very steep driveway, and she's like, what do I do with the steep driveway? And I said, you run towards it. You don't run away from it. You say, the house has a steep driveway, but you can't get the view. It's a 1 in a million view, but a steep driveway. That's how we dealt with it.
Right. That's great.
So you run towards it, right? So, focus feature, I think, is another missed opportunity in promotion.
And the other thing I think is, again, I think people have to think of this. Now we're talking about promotion. So I think they have to think of it just like a sales funnel, right? You throw a bunch of people in the top and you see who falls out. And I think that, the first ad that you wrote, right, in this case was the spacious ranch home, with whatever, that's great at the top of the funnel. And I think potentially to tell that story, right, oh, I'm interested, let me know more, right? I think this is where maybe video in the kitchen, right? This is how when it comes from the agent, if it comes from you, Jim, listing the property, saying all this stuff, that's one thing. And people know, like, maybe the agent's not really being completely truthful. But if you could watch a video of the person saying, this is, sitting in the kitchen, right, having a drink on, you mentioned lighting, right, evening light outside, saying this is why we bought the house, right? Like this is our kids went to school, to number one school, and we've made so many friends here, right? All the stuff people want. We've made so many friends here, we feel so at home. I don't know. It's super safe. Whatever the hot buns are. Okay, so
no, I love it. And what's something that goes right along with what you're saying is we've been testing at our company. We're looking at this concept of having either an actor or the homeowner themselves in the pictures when we're taking the photos. Now, maybe not all of them, but some of them, like in the kitchen, on the deck. Because when you look at a lot of listings as a buyer, you just kind of like boom, 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 boom. But once you see a person, you stop. You just can't help but stop
and
look. And it's very interesting to see how that changes the dynamic, because now you see people actually, again, enjoying lifestyle, and that's really what we sell is lifestyle.
Right. Sorry, we'll end on this because we could keep talking about this forever. But I mean, in my mind, you could even take, ask again, going back to the seller. Hey, when's the last time you had a barbecue or pool party? Right? Do you have any pictures that we can maybe look at to fundamentally, or maybe use? Now, again, right? Consent with you can't have a bunch of neighbors in there. But right. Whatever. Okay. All right. So that's. Dude, this. You know what? I got to tell you, Jim. I'm going to be honest with you. We get a lot of people, again, in your case, a booking agent saying, "Hey, you should talk to Jim." A lot of times, we take a pass on those people just because there's some other motive, typically, that they want to get on the show, and In your case, I'm glad we didn't, man. I mean, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you are an amazing guest, and you should listen to the show, but. But
of course.
A lot of people don't come on with specific tactics to a granular degree like you are giving us. Most people are general. All right, okay. So enough of you're a great guy. Okay, so
no more, please. I'm just
yeah, right. Of course. Okay, should we move on from this, or is there anything? How do you wrap this up? Because I want to ask you about you moving on to ownership and offices real quick.
Yeah, that's good. Absolutely. Any questions you have, I'm ready.
Okay, so as I said, you started at 19 years old, 30-year veteran. Before actually we get into built offices, you are an extremely, it seems, relevant guy, right? You're up on video, you're up on social media, right? You're up on this. For an old guy, right? That's pretty rare. Yeah. And even for listen, Jim, even for you and I both know 90% of real estate agents are terrible marketers, terrible advertisers, and in reality, they're not necessarily great salespeople. They might be super likable, but in terms of actual skills, how did you, Jim? How did you continue throughout your long career, continue to stay relevant, like you are today?
It's interesting, over the years that I've been in the business, I mean, I started back when, there wasn't even an MLS. I mean, it was just, I don't even know how we did it, honestly. But, you have to, what happens with a lot of new agents and veteran agents is they get into a system and they get into kind of a habit and they refuse to grow with the technology. And you can be on the cutting edge or you can be on the bleeding edge of technology. And the bleeding edge is being too far out. You're too much of an early adopter where you're adopting things that are going to fall by the wayside because nobody else is adopting them but you. But the cutting edge is where you got to look at where's the trend line. And a good way to do that is, listening to podcasts like this one, listening to webinars and attending conventions. And I did all those things. There's so much great information out there now. You just have to watch what is the trend, not what is what one person doing, but what's the trend in the business. And anytime you're looking at any technology, you always got the fundamental question you have to ask is, how can this help me, and how can this help my consumers, and how can it help me reach my consumers? Because there's things like, for me, I'll give you an example like Twitter. I mean, I have tried to use Twitter multiple times. It doesn't work for me. Now, some agents use it very successfully, but for my business and my model, I can't get it to work. Right. But I do know those agents using it. So you have to look at the tools, and then here the real secret is find somebody that's successfully using it and sit down with them and say, show me how you're doing this. Right. Or hire somebody. I spend a ton of money myself on trainers, so I'll hire a trainer. I just did this. I hired a trainer on Fiverr.com, to walk me through Google Ads. I think I'm pretty smart on Google Ads, but after his 2 hours of training with me, I felt like a complete idiot.
Are you serious?
He just walked me right there. He's like, man, that was just totally missing the boat on this. So, you just have to continually progress. And here's another way to measure that is ask yourself, am I doing business like I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? If you're doing business like you were 5 years ago, you are so out of date. You're like a dinosaur, Even a year ago, you got to change continuously.
Yeah, I agree with everything. But I think so. But I think I know you're gonna agree with this. But I think one thing to point out to people to remember is that no matter how good you are on Twitter, or Facebook or Instagram or Snap or whatever, you're not going to sell homes through. Nobody has ever sold a home through Twitter. Now, the trick with all the social media and man, I've known this for a long time, and I still forget it doing what I do. The trick is as you said, just to get the phone to ring, right? Just to bring people closer into your orbit, to take them. I think you want to use these tools: Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever, to build online relationships, to then migrate them to an offline, a real personal relationship, because that's when you get things done. And I think so many people will try Twitter or, again, those other platforms that I mentioned, and they'll give it a good go for a little bit, and then they're like, that didn't move the needle on I didn't sell anything. And I'm like, you were not your goal. You were shooting for the wrong goal, right? Right platform, wrong use case.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And our society in general, and we could get into all the philosophical discussion, but society in general and all the apps and technology we see is moving us towards less human interaction. You look at systems like Uber and, these systems where
Amazon
you
Prime.
To get into a car, talk to Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
All this stuff being delivered to us. And real estate's the same way. There's been a trend towards less and less human interaction. So one thing we train our agents on is this, that every transaction you will ever have in your life, every single one, will be the result of a recent conversation you've had in the last 2 weeks. You go back and look at it. You tell me a transaction you didn't put together that you didn't have a conversation in the last 2 weeks. Every single one.
Right.
And so it's human conversation. And we boil it down further to, for every 30 conversations you have, doesn't matter who they're with, you'll average one closed transaction. And if you want to just, say I want to close 50 transactions next year, great, 1,500 conversations. Who do you want to start talking to? Period.
Right. Yeah, I that's so true, and I think that's a question that should be a sticky note on everybody's desk, right? Like, who have I talked to in the last 2 weeks? Because that's what's going to kick through the funnel today.
Absolutely.
With so many people though, man, they believe the hype on the internet. Oh, it's just I need to build a more complicated sales funnel, right? Let me go to funnel. Who's Funnel Hacker? Who's that guy?
ClickFunnels.
ClickFunnels. Yeah. Right. So let me go spend $10,000 on ClickFunnels. Let me buy ClickFunnels and then let me get a training. Again, I'm reiterating what you said. I mean, people need to pick up the phone, put their ego down, and
absolutely. There's a great article by the guy that I can't remember his name, but he was the editor of Wired magazine, and he said every single musician only needs 1,000 true fans to make a living. Yeah. And I always relate that to real estate.
Yeah.
On all the social media stuff that we're doing, if we just relate it to our 1,000 true fans and we just build towards 1,000 true fans, we can have an amazing income in real estate.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We don't need to have 10,000 or 50,000. We don't need to be an influencer. We only need 1,000 true fans.
Oh, man. Again, all this stuff, at least for me, I'll talk about from my perspective, Jim, all this stuff I've known for a very long time, but yet, even though I know it, I even teach this stuff. It's sometimes putting that application or that knowledge in application in my life can be challenging because with this podcast, and on Twitter, I have way more than 1,000 true fans. Guess what? You know what I was missing when I had when I first got my first true 1,000? I was missing a product to sell them. Right, I was so focused on
right.
building this fan base that I was like, oh, I forgot the whole point. I need to actually make a sale. Anyhow, okay, so from real estate to ownership, I think hopefully everybody understands. Explain 60 seconds, Jim. Explain what that looks like so everybody listening has a clear idea.
For me, it was a challenge. I mean, I felt like I had gone out and done a lot as an agent, and I thought, well, I want the next challenge. I want to become an owner. What I didn't realize, being 23 years old, was that I would not make nearly as much money as I made as an agent. It took me another 10 years probably to start earning as much as I was as an agent. The reason is the margins. So with owning a real estate company, your margin of profit is about 1% to 5%. If you're lucky, most lose money. I mean, 80% of the companies in any market, in your real estate market, are losing money. It's a fact. Whereas, and the reason for that is agent splits are so high now that the agents are actually their own companies and are doing very well. The money is being an agent. Yes, I've grown to the point when you're doing $1 billion in sales, of course we're doing well, but it's a struggle being an owner of a company. So when anybody comes to me and says, should I go open my own company? I said, you already own your own company. You're an agent, and you're making far more money than the owner that you are hanging your license under right now. They're operating at a 5% net. You're getting probably 30, 40, 50% net when you look at your numbers. But that's always my advice. Sometimes people listen, sometimes people don't.
Sure. Well, I mean, people see brokers and they just go, oh, this guy doesn't do anything, and I pay him this much money. Look, I don't want to get into this model conversation, but the typical franchise model sucks out all the money. Yeah. Well, here's what
it's challenging, but the other thing that agents will come to me and they'll say, "Well, should I join a team?" That's another big conversation.
Always.
And so my answer to that is, when you're a team, the only reason you join a team is because you can't lead generate yourself. That's the bottom line. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are great salespeople, but terrible lead generators. And so that's always my first question. Well, do you feel like you can't generate leads? Right. If the answer is yes, maybe you should join a team. If not, then, if you feel like you can generate leads, there's absolutely no reason to be a part of the team. In fact, maybe you should eventually build your own. That's another conversation I have a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I would here's what I would say to that question, right? Because I get asked that too, right? Should I join a team? And I think the lead question's a fair question, but the other piece of it is, a lot of people typically, real estate's a funky thing where it's a big mystery. When you're starting out, it's a mystery. All the stuff's a mystery to people. They don't know how to do. They know some real estate law, right? They just got their license, but they're like, I don't. Once I have a lead, I call them. Like, what do I do with the paperwork? Like, it's the mechanics, man, of just doing a deal that confounds people. It's not that hard, but it confounds people, and I think that's why people go, oh, I need to join a team. So people here's the thing. Right, in my opinion, Jim, people think that they're going to join a real estate company, name the franchise, or join a team, and it's a lot like getting a job, where they walk in on a Monday and they go, hey, Jim, you're going to sit here. Martha is going to show you this. This is what you need to know, and they're going to show you how to do the whole job of a real estate agent, and then you're going to start working. And in fact, that's not typically the case, right?
No, not at all. Yeah, you can. I always, when I talk to new agents, we always get a lot of new agents that can talk to us as well. Yeah. The attrition rate in our business is, I think it's now 84% over the first 18 months. I mean, it's insane, what the attrition rate is. 4 legs up in the parking lot, and people say, why is it so high? And the reason is exactly what you're describing. People don't really understand what our business is. I'll tell you a really quick, interesting story. I taught at a convention in Australia. And in Australia, the real estate business is completely different than it is here. Yeah. When you become a new agent there, they sit you down and say, you're going to be a lead generator. And this is how they start. You're on salary. You're going to make 100 calls a day, every day. And if you can't do that, you don't get a job. But if you do 100 calls a day, of the leads that you generate, you don't get the leads. They're handed off to someone else, and they go out and work the leads. You do that for 6 months. Once you get to the 6-month point, then you're assigned a mentor, and then somebody else will take your position, and then you will get these leads handed to you. But you have to split them for another 6 months with someone else that's your mentor. Then you graduate to actually being a full-time agent. That's the process.
Well, yeah.
Can you imagine that in our industry? It would clean out so many people that actually probably shouldn't be in this business.
I hear you. And it'll also clean out, some of those, older people that they can make a decent living by selling 2 or 3 houses, because they're I'm talking about like these 60-year-old third career people.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but just for the record, right? So here in America, we can buy an online course for $99 and get our real estate license. In Australia, the process takes like 2 years. Like, it's a crazy long process.
It's like a college degree.
Yeah, right. Exactly right.
It's totally different.
Canada's very similar.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to ownership, you're saying ownership's a bad idea in general, right? If you
Well, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that you got to know what you're getting into.
yeah.
And there's no middle ground. You're either, if you're going to become an owner and you say, hey, I'm going to still do this because I'm passionate about it, not necessarily about me making a ton of money, it's about me leading people and challenging myself. I get it because I did it. But then you have to make a decision, which is kind of a fork in the road that a lot of people miss, and that is, I'm either going to be a boutique, small company, and when I say small, I'm saying less than 10 agents.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go for it, man, and I'm just going to be big. You're going to be like me. You're going to be 180 to 100, 150, 200 agents. Some offices have 5. The middle ground, which is where most offices are, which is 20 to probably 40, maybe 50 agents. That's like death zone. That's a very dangerous position to be in because you're too small to be nimble,
right?
And you're not quite big enough to be large enough to have economy of scale.
Exactly.
You got to say, you got to have like this mental, like, where am I headed? You can't stay in that. If you're going to go through the middle ground to get to the top, but you got to say to yourself, I'm going for it. I'm going all the way. I'm achieving. I'm going to the top of Everest, and just understand what you're doing, right? Because there's a lot of risk there, but the reward is great once you get to the top, but it's a lot of work.
And we got to wrap it up. I know we started late, but we have 8 minutes on our typical 60 minutes. So we're gonna. Do you have anything like that? Well, here's the question: what didn't I ask you, Jim, that I should have asked you?
That's a very good question. I think as far as new agents actually getting out there and making some money, the one thing I would suggest that all of them do that they're probably not doing as much of as they should, is really doubling down on their sphere, which everybody says, but then actually committing to what does that exactly mean, right? I mean, we all say sphere, but what does it mean specifically? And, in my company, 8 out of 10 of our sales are really directly related to sphere. I'm going to give you one automation example of that I just coached somebody on recently. They have, I think, 2,000 people in their database. Big database. I mean, for an agent, very high level agent, $50 million a year. They have a team. And so he's like, I can't call 2,000 people. I mean, give me a break, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible. I thought, well, you can call your top ones, physically you should call them. But what we did is we did a slide broadcast. So slide broadcast, you slide broadcast, and you record a message, and it was for 4th of July. And he said, hey, just want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. Hope you're doing well. Let's connect soon. Hope you're having a great day. And it sounded generic enough that he could throw it in there. And what you do is you record the message, and then it goes into their voicemail. So he just takes an entire database, uploads it to slide broadcast, sends out the broadcast voicemail, and bingo, they get a voicemail that's dropped to them. And that was an example of kind of thinking a little bit outside the box with your own sphere. Instead of thinking about, the traditional nodes calls Popeyes, let's think outside the box. Let's use some other technology. Another thing to think about that when I was looking at I was talking about the Google class I just took, is remarketing. So remarketing to your own database. We often remarket to our own sellers, but we should be remarketing all of our content to our own audience, our own database, which no one's doing. No one's doing this. And so that is such a simple thing that we should all be doing, so that every time we're posting anything we're running ads, it's all coming up in front of the people that are already our 1,000 true fans. And those are some simple things, that we should be thinking about and really taking the next step with.
Yeah, and just so slide. You mentioned and talked about slide broadcast, but I don't know that everybody. To use slide broadcast, I would go to slide broadcast. I would tell them all the numbers I want, right? Whatever's in my database, want them to call. I leave a message, and when the recipient, if you were on my list, Jim, your phone would not ring. However, my voicemail would go straight to your voicemail, and you would think that you missed a call from me and that it went to voicemail.
Exactly.
Right. So it seems
the voicemail drop. Yeah.
It's a voicemail. Yeah. Slide broadcast is great.
Can I give you one more technique with slide broadcast just really quick?
Yeah.
Super quick. Think about using this for sell banners and expired listings. Imagine you have a college person, your assistant. Every morning they get up, they send a message that you've created, and it goes into the FSBO's voicemail into the expired's voicemail, so you're not physically have to make all these calls.
Right.
It's kind of brilliant.
Brilliant. No, brilliant.
So yeah.
We use it
We
here.
can talk all day about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another one I can tell you offline that maybe you're using or not. And I will tell you offline. I've mentioned it before, so I don't want to mention it now. But the other thing is, I would just say is for this guy that's doing $60 million in production. He has 2,000 people in his database, right? Decent sized database. You are familiar with HelloBond, right?
No, tell me.
So HelloBond.co, it's bond.co, and then it goes to HelloBond. So it's what they do. You can write a message, right? You can literally write a message to someone. It's about $3 a letter, and these guys have these machines with beautiful Mont Blanc pens, and their computers read your message, and these pens write it, right? These pens will write this beautiful handwritten, like calligraphy letter and mail it to your database. So if this guy, if 2,000, past clients, he could, 2,000 people times $3, a $6,000 marketing venture. I guarantee you he'd get at least a 3x, 4x, maybe 10x return on that. Depending on what his average sale is. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. People are afraid to, try new stuff. People are afraid to spend money. Anyhow, all right, Jim. Real quick, do you have a daily routine or morning habit you think has contributed to your success?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. So I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I work for 90 minutes exactly. That's my habit. And I've been doing that for years. And I can guarantee you that it's enabled me to beat my competitors regularly. And really just set my day off right. It's, they call that winning the day. And I think that's what Buffini calls it. I think you have to start in a quiet space where you can actually get some real work done. If I walk into the office, it's done. I mean, I'm going to get bombarded by 10,000 things in 2 seconds. So I use that time for creativity. And I always tell agents that if you want some creative time, like marketing time, advertising, writing, promotional kind of thing, that's a great time to do it. When the phone's not ringing, no distractions. I'm on my couch. I got the fire on if it's cold outside, and I'm just working on my laptop for 90 minutes. Well, you can get a lot done in 90 minutes uninterrupted. And then I work out for an hour, and then I go to work. So that's my morning routine.
I'll tell you, if you get 90, if you, in your case you do, but you getting 90 minutes of actual work, I think if you actually looked at the typical real estate worker and how many hours they actually work, I'll bet you most people, right, are only doing actual real work, moving the ball forward, like doing some work. Like maybe 3 hours a day, right? Of actual work. People
totally agree.
Yeah. So 90 minutes is huge. We always ask for a book recommendation. I know you wrote one. It's got great reviews. I read it, or I read the reviews, I should say. You can't recommend yours, okay? You can mention it, but here's the question. I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy right now?
Great book, Tools for Titans by Timothy Ferriss is a great book. Yeah. I like that one. I always recommend, and it's an older book too, Good to Great, Jim Collins.
Yes.
Great book. I'm a believer in the classics, so those are two great books. So those are probably my two recommendations that I recommend right now. Also, just as far as a time management book, one that people don't really know much about is called The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. So if you find that one, that's a classic that's kind of hard to find, but it's probably the best book I've read on time management.
That's awesome. We talk about that all the time here. All right, everybody, if you haven't read Good to Great, go get it. If you haven't read Tools of the Titans by Tim Ferriss, get that one too. You can get a free copy on us on Audible. Just go to audibletrial.com/superagentslive. Jim, man, look, it's been great. If people want to know more about you, I wish we had time to really dig into your 180 agents and some of the stuff where that some of the characteristics that you saw early on, but we don't have time. So if people want to know more about you, Jim, where can people find out about you? Or call you.
So I have a coaching company. It's eRealEstateCoach.com. So eRealEstateCoach.com. We got a lot of courses over there and a coaching platform over there. So anybody wants to check me out, I'd love to have them come on over.
That's awesome. All right. That's it, man. I appreciate it, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
See you, bud.
Let's go.